Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Dubcast with Dubside. It's been a while since Dubside and I last spoke, and I'm thrilled to be back.
Yes, I'm thrilled to be back too. I try to keep the podcast going in between, but we don't get to talk like this on every single one. But here we are.
We hope you've been enjoying our interviews and all the inside information from kayak designers like Johan Wersen and Bjorn Thomason to competition rollers from Greenland like Ida Nielsen. Thanks to all our listeners for your unwavering support. I like to think this podcast truly captures what traditional kayaking is all about and has become a great resource for enthusiasts. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I would. Sometimes I may stray a little outside of the kayaking subject, but I try to make sure I come back at some point so we don't get lost too much in the other things. But overall, I would say this has been quite the incredible journey for me. What are we, three years now? We're going on something like that.
Can you believe that?
Yeah. Well, I got to thank you, Andrew, for suggesting originally the idea of doing this podcast, because I hadn't thought of it on my own.
Well, you're very welcome. I never expected it to grow this big.
Yes, it's been quite the journey.
And speaking of journeys, have you noticed how Greenland's been making the headlines lately? With the new airport opening in Nuuk, rapid development, and anticipated increases in tourism, thanks to the direct flights from Canada and the United States, things are definitely heating up. There's even talk about an increased U.S. or NATO military presence, given Greenland's strategic importance in protecting our northern border from Russia and China. And warmer temperatures are opening the Arctic up to shipping, mining, and drilling for oil and gas.
Yeah. And things are changing so fast that the Greenlanders aren't sure if the U.S. is their friend or their foe. It's gotten very confused lately.
You know, you have the chance to give the Greenlanders a good impression of what Americans are all about. And I think that's important because we don't want to create any resentment toward an American presence. I mean, how many people live in Greenland? 56,000 people?
Yeah.
You could easily imagine the whole country being overrun by foreigners.
Yeah. Well, and I think people that kayak have a special role to play in this development, because going there and really getting into the kayak stuff, the people I talk to, you know, when they see that you're interested in the Greenland kayak, they kind of put you in a different class from the average tourist who goes up there. And the average tourist who goes up there, I think those numbers are going to go way, way up with the new airport coming. So we have to keep some of the good ambassadorship going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So do you think you'll be going back again this year?
Well, I've thought about it. It is an idea. I may not go to Europe. The work, the people that want to hire me to teach rolling and stuff, I haven't really gotten any new arrangements in the Norway, Denmark, or Sweden like I usually have. Most people they're saying, you know, we'd love to see you again. You can stay as long as you like, but we don't have any work for you per se. So if it's going to cost me money to go to Scandinavia, I may bypass that.
Well, it's much easier now.
Yeah. Well, we have direct flights from New York are already going to be, if they're not already, I think it's United's going to fly in May. And I think SAS Airlines is flying from Copenhagen straight to Nuuk. But so far, I was looking at the prices, and the price hasn't come seriously down. It still costs about the same, which is kind of disappointing. But maybe if when more carriers fly it, maybe there'll be some competition to bring the price down even more.
Yeah.
And the competition this summer is in Sisimiut. So flying straight into Nuuk still means you got to get from Nuuk to Sisimiut, which is going to cost you some more.
Oh, okay.
That's how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, I bet we can make it happen again this year. Personally, I'm certainly more than willing to fund a portion of your trip. And I think with the help of all of our incredible listeners, I think we can make this adventure a reality once again.
Well, I would be much obliged and appreciate it very much.
As the official Kayak USA ambassador to Greenland, you're the best representative we have to show the Greenlanders that we're truly invested in preserving their unique traditional kayaking culture and in strengthening the ties between us. It's a significant role.
That would be great. And I have been giving some thought to how to make this all happen. So we can try to rerun our GoFundMe effort from last year, and once again see if we can come up with enough money to pay for my trip to Greenland.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I'm going to set up the GoFundMe right now. And I'd like to say to our listeners, thank you once again for your ongoing support. We could not do any of this without you, and your contributions are really what has made this podcast possible. I want you all to know that we respect your time and attention. We don't have any advertising or sponsors like you get in quite a few other podcasts. That's how they make money, after all. Well, we don't monetize anything. This has been a labor of love, and other than the Greenland trips, this podcast has been entirely self-funded, and we strive for constant and never-ending improvement. So, keep tuning in for more adventures and insights on the Dubcast with Dubside.
Yes, indeed. And with that, let's get into number 60. What are we up to now?
66.
66.
Welcome to the Dubcast with Dubside. This is Dubcast number 66. I'm going to tell you about my time in Nuuk, Greenland's capital city, where I spent 4 days in the summer of 2024 after the kayak competition. And I went through the new Nuuk airport, which at that time hadn't quite been finished, and hung out with some cool people, had some musical experiences, and I observed some manifestations of the big change underway in Greenland as they try to boost tourism substantially. And one other note on a subject I haven't talked about very much: new fashion trends in Greenland. In the United States of America, our big sporting events are football, baseball, and basketball. And in other parts of the world, there are other more important sports, such as football in the world, which is what we call soccer in the U.S., and there's cricket, and there's handball and other things. But I would like to just keep us all on the same page by mentioning one of the top figures in soccer or football in the world. His name is Cristiano Ronaldo, originally born in Portugal. And I would say that there are probably more people worldwide who are familiar with Ronaldo than somebody like we know in the U.S., perhaps Tom Brady, or currently Patrick Mahomes, one of the top quarterbacks. But outside of the U.S., those names aren't nearly the household word that Ronaldo is. In Greenland, I don't think I've ever seen anyone playing American football. In fact, I don't think I've ever even seen an American football in Greenland. But every town has a soccer field, and every town has some very enthusiastic soccer players, and there's quite an awareness of the game. In July of 2024, I flew to Nuuk from Qaqortoq in the south, and the weather, as you may have heard me talk about, was not the best, giving me a 3-day delay to get to Greenland in the first place. But by the time I got up to Nuuk, it was still raining quite a bit. It was not so foggy that they couldn't land, but flew into Nuuk and got to the new airport, the almost finished at that time new airport, which is much bigger than the old airport. They built it right on the same location as the old airport, just expanded it. And so it's looking like the big internationally ready facility. The big waiting room, the display boards, the space for long lines, the whole 9 yards. And following my usual procedure, I had put the word out to my Greenland contacts, those who lived in Nuuk, that when I would be coming in, what time the flight would land. and just figured hopefully somebody will come pick me up at the airport. So I got off the plane and got my bags and went out to the waiting area. There's a big glass wall there. You can look out on the street and see the stand where the taxis come and other people come to pick passengers up. And so everybody starts getting their rides, and I'm sitting there waiting. And I've been through this situation before. About 20 minutes later, I'm one of the only people there waiting for a ride until I am the only person there waiting for a ride. And it's raining pretty hard and windy. So it's not really a good time to walk into Nuuk, the center of town, like I have done in the past. It's more than a mile. And so if you wait that long, even the taxis are all gone. They're going down into town where the rides are. If there's no plane coming, there's nobody there except for the one guy, me, standing there. They figure didn't want to ride because he ignored so many cabs already. So I had to wait a good bit longer, another 10 or 15 or 20 minutes for some stray cab to take one last route out to the airport to take a look, and flagged him down. So it cost me what he wanted, 120 kroners to get into Nuuk. Which is about, what's that, 120? That's like $20 or so. I gave him 150, said, here, just keep this. So then I didn't have the exact address of where I was staying, so we sort of had to figure that out, and he didn't speak full English, but we got that straightened out. And I was put up at the Ungaaq hostel, which Ungaaq Tobiassen, the Greenland Kayak Association, was nice enough to cover the expense of. In one way, this hostel exemplified the change that's taking place going from the old Greenland to the new Greenland. They've got a nice location out on the shoreline, and there's a central building, it's kind of like a cafe, and then there are a number of other buildings, little cabin sort of things, and these have different sizes. The one I stayed in had 4 rooms in it and a kitchen and a bathroom. And so each of these cabins has its own water tank. And to fill up the water tanks, they run a hose line out from the main building across the roadways and fill up the water tanks. And then they have a little system that tells you when your tank is running low, and then they have to come out and fill it up again. And so if you use a whole lot of water and it runs out, you have to go through this whole process where they come to fill it up again. Now, in any tourist spot in an undeveloped third world country, you wouldn't think twice about something like this. But if you're going to a major tourist destination, like this is an inconvenience you couldn't tolerate. If you're a high-paying customer used to all the amenities you left back home. And the reason they didn't have underground pipes to each of the cabins is because it's very expensive to dig underground pipes in Greenland. You're going to hit rocks as soon as you get an inch or two below the dirt. So for quite some time, I guess, they had this working system where they'd run the hose out across the road. Well, as I was there, they were in the process of modernizing, and they had an excavator and some heavy equipment out there digging a trench in the rocks, which is not easy to do, to put in some pipelines in the ground to run to each of the cabins. Well, they'll have the full modern setup when they finish doing that, but while I was there, they were working on it. So thinking I had a nice, idyllic cabin with a great view, I had this heavy equipment machinery right outside the door throughout the day making a racket, and I had a trench to step around and not fall into every time I walked out of my cabin. Now, those kind of construction and improvement situations are happening all over Nuuk. And as I recall, Nuuk sort of went through this before, back in the early 2000s when they were expecting to do a whole lot of mining and oil exploration. There was a whole lot of construction and work going on for all the ancillary businesses that would support the oil extraction. But when that fell through, things sort of went into a standby. But now that this airport is completed, they're gearing up again for the big push for massive modernization. And I'm seeing like whole areas of the city that weren't there the last time I was there. the airport runway was extended by about 1 kilometer, and they had to truck in probably hundreds of loads of rocks to build up the runway and had to raise the ground up, 50, 100 feet to the end of it to get the full-length runway so the international flights can use that airport. Well, once I got settled into the hostel, going into the center of town, which I thought would be somewhat close, but I didn't check the scale of the maps before I got to Nuuk. It turns out it's about 2 miles to get from the hostel I was staying at into the center of town. But I did walk that a number of times because I don't have the money to buy taxi rides all the time. There's a bus that goes that route, but it's not that often. So I walked it in the rain. And the center of town is where I did the interview with Christian Elsner at Atlantic Music. And after the first day or two, I did manage to hook up with Ungaaq, and I did the interview with him. And thereafter, I'd be walking around, trying to walk into town once again, and the car would slow down and pull over, and it would be Ungaaq says, hop in, and then we'd be driving around. And eventually I connected up with a number of other people I know living in Nuuk. Well, this particular visit to Greenland, I was on a special mission from Kayak USA to find prospective people to bring as guests to the Kayak USA events in the U.S. And so I was looking for people who could speak English fairly well, and I did interview 9 different people. And one interview I did my last day or two in Nuuk, and this was with, I've mentioned his name before, Ungaaq Tobiassen. His brother I've mentioned before, Pavia Tobiassen, and Pavia's wife is Johanna Tobiassen. She is now the president of Qaqortoq. Well, Ungaaq speaks some English. He also plays guitar. And when I first met Ungaaq in 2004, he did not have a son that he has now. Ivik is 14 years old. And I interviewed the two of them together. And Ivik can speak English better than his father can. He says he learned how to speak English by watching TV, I think it was. So how about we listen to a little bit of the interview and you can get a sense of these personalities directly.
Yeah. Tell me your name and
My name is Ivik,
and where do you live?
in Nuuk, Qaqortoq. Yeah.
All right. And you are?
My name is Ungaaq Tobiassen. I'm the father of Ivik.
Uh-huh.
And we lived here in Nuuk, Qaqortoq, part of Nuuk.
All right. So, Ivik, how old are you?
I'm 13.
Okay.
I'll be 14 this year.
Okay. Where did you learn to speak English?
YouTube.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. What got you interested in kayaking? Why did you want to do kayaking?
Because my dad said, do you want to do kayak? When I said yes, yeah, that's why I want to do kayak.
All right. What do you like best about kayaking?
Competitions?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. How many gold medals have you got?
Maybe 11.
Really?
Yeah.
About 11.
Do you know how to roll?
Oh, yeah.
Kinglesa?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yes? Wow.
I can do that. Yeah.
And you can see there that Ivik, as a real Greenlander, even when he's speaking English, when he says the word kayak in a sentence, he says kayak. That's how you pronounce Qajaq for real. So I got Ungaaq to give me his view on one of the big topics of conversation at the time.
So what do you think about this new airport that you're going to have in just a few months here in Nuuk?
I am a very little too afraid of weather.
The weather.
Because we have rainy or storm.
Okay. So what, like, it's to build a whole great big airport like that with a place that doesn't get really good weathers.
There's so many canceled.
Cancellations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
All right.
but I'm so excited.
Okay.
We can maybe take directly to Canada or America.
Yeah. So I asked Ivik about music that he was interested in, and he was more interested in American music than Greenlandic stuff. What's your favorite music group or band?
Eminem.
Yeah.
And
All right.
Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
And Tupac is good
Tupac.
too.
Yeah.
And
Those are some more old school kind of rappers.
Yeah, I
right?
like
Well,
old school
Eminem's
rap.
still putting out records, right? But
yeah.
Tupac's long gone. But his stuff is great. It's classic stuff.
I like the music.
Well, I could tell, as you can, that Ivik can hold a conversation in English. But I decided at this point to give him a more exacting test of how comfortable he is with the English language. So, Ivik, can you tell me a joke in English?
Knock knock.
Who's there?
Ronaldo.
Ronaldo who?
See.
All right, I'll confess. I'm faking my laughing there because the joke was lost on me. Did not know what he was referring to. And I guess like a lot of us Americans, we have to be educated on the finer points of soccer. And so now I know that Cristiano Ronaldo, I knew that name vaguely, but I didn't know that much about him. So anyway, for those of you who aren't aware, Ronaldo has this trademark phrase that he says after he scores a goal, which he's been doing for quite some time now. He uses the Portuguese word for yes, which is siu. So screaming out siu becomes the punchline of the knock knock joke. And I'm sure you Danish and international listeners probably understood right away, but for us Americans who aren't so well informed, that's the explanation of the joke. Well, I was walking around Nuuk one day when it stopped raining, and I was on a mission to find the American consulate. There's an office in Greenland. It's not an embassy because Greenland isn't a full-fledged country yet, but there's an American consulate there. So I had to find out where it was. So I went into a place I'd been before a couple years back. It was like some tourist office, some kind of place like that. And it looked a lot different, though. So I went in there, and it seemed like something had changed. And it was more just a retail operation. Maybe the old place had moved out or gone out of business. So there's a woman behind the counter in front, and they've got clothing and stuff around. It's not a big shop. So I look at some of the clothes, and then there are these two guys sitting in the back. And they're very friendly. They speak English, and they asked me about what I was looking for. And I said, I'm trying to find this American consulate place. And so we got to talking. They were very, very happy to talk to me. And I told them about my podcast, gave them a guitar pick. So it turns out they have a clothing line they have designed. And I'll back up a second here. Now clothing, fashion in Greenland, there are a couple of entities now that make their own clothing and using like Inuit-inspired themes. And so I think the first one it's called Isaacson Design. And they go back to about the 2002, and they have a whole clothing line, and they're trained, knowledgeable clothing fashion designers, and they make a very, very high quality selection of items. Then there's BB Chemnitz. They started about 2005. Similar, the high end, well done fashion things. There's a later group, I think 2012 they started. It's called Inuit Quality Clothing of Greenland. And you can look up any of these online. And Inuit Quality Clothing of Greenland, one of their big logos, it just says Inuit on the front of it. And I've seen a number of the Greenlanders wear that. And I couldn't wear that. I wouldn't feel good about it. I'm not Inuit, so I can't wear a shirt that says Inuit. But so these two guys that I end up talking to, they more recently decided to start their own clothing line. And Greenland right now it's so wide open with all the new tourism coming. There's lots of opportunity. And guys like these who just want to take the initiative, have good chance of success. So they had enough initial response that they quit their day jobs, and now this is what they do. And so their company is called Bolt Lamar. And that's not their names. The two guys, one's name is Arnie, the other guy's name is Mala. And they explained to me that they took the inspiration from the Jamaican world record sprinter Usain Bolt, his last name, and then the U.S. rapper Kendrick Lamar, and they just made it Bolt Lamar. So they have shirts and hoodies and baseball caps that says Bolt Lamar on them. And so these guys are so cool and friendly. They looked up on their computer where the American consulate was, and it wasn't right in the center of downtown. It was quite a ways farther out. One of the guys says, "Oh, I'll take you there." We go out, we get in this car. He drives me there, waits while I talk. These guys were really cool and amazing. And so as I start looking around Greenland and remembering things, people I saw in Qaqortoq, a number of people had a Bolt Lamar T-shirt. And I sort of assessed that this is the hallmark of what cool people. The new cool thing to wear is a Bolt Lamar hoodie or sweatshirt or baseball cap. So if you want to be cool, if you're wherever you're from if you're in Helsinki or Taiwan or Ecuador somewhere and you want to get some cool exclusive thing that nobody knows about, the underground cool, go online, boltlamar.com, and get yourself a Bolt Lamar piece of gear and wear that around. And maybe someday somebody who knows something about Greenland will see it and say, hey, that's Bolt Lamar. Or maybe within a couple of years, the Bolt Lamar hits the mainstream and everybody's wearing it, and then it may not be cool anymore. But I wish these guys a whole lot of success. I was going to interview them, and we tried to set something up, but they got too busy later on in the afternoon, so it didn't quite work out. But maybe next time I'll get and talk to them directly. But very, very, very nice bunch of guys, and I hope they do quite well. Bolt Lamar is the name of their company. Bolt Lamar T-shirts and gear. Well, as you may be aware, at this point I have accumulated a sizable collection of Greenlandic songs that I know, and I wanted to, going to Greenland now for the first time in 4 or 5 years, get a chance to hang out with some Greenlanders and sing songs in their language. And the opportunity in Qaqortoq during the competition didn't quite present itself, but in Nuuk, I finally arranged, it was the last evening I was there, to hang out with Ungaaq, and he has an older brother. He has another older brother besides Ungaaq Tobiassen, who's quite musically inclined, and there was this other woman who was there. So we went, I got somebody to take me over to his place, his other brother's house. It was a different part of Nuuk, and we spent the evening singing songs. And I had my recording equipment running, so I'll give you a little taste. I'm not gonna play everything, but just here's sort of what it sounds like to hang out with Greenlanders and play music. We started off naturally with the Kayak song. In that version, I played just the last episode, number 65. You hear the whole thing. So I'm not going to play that to the end. But I will let you see what happened right after that song. I played them my version of it. And we can just jump ahead on that. But that's actually from the Dubcast number 2, I think. I did that version. So I've got some Bluetooth speakers there with the Greenlanders, and I had the track on that, and I'm singing along to it live. We'll jump ahead to the end of the song and get the reaction of 3 native-speaking Greenlanders to a foreigner trying to sing in their language.
Yeah.
All right, I can translate that. The woman, I think she was the partner of Ungaaq's brother who was there. She says pikkali, and then Ungaaq says nuan. And pikkali, that's typically said when somebody does something very well or very capably. Pikkali. So that's a positive word. And then nuan is just generally a nice, very, very, very good, nice thing. So they're probably just saying that because they don't want to insult the foreigner. But I took it as a compliment. So we continued, and they were just singing various songs they knew. I'll give you a little selection of that fading in and out here. Well, if that song sounds familiar to you, and I hope it does, I did that song in Dubcast number 58, a piece originally done by Nanerwak that Ungaaq Tobiassen turned me on to. And so, when they finished singing that one, I cranked up my Bluetooth speakers and said, okay, I can match that. And as you can hear on the chorus, they are chiming in with background vocals. So that indicates to me that at least I've got the music right, even if my singing isn't that great. And then at one point, they pulled out a song that I'd never heard a version like this before, but I bet you know this song. Check this out. Oh, yes, that is all 5 verses of The Sounds of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. And in the translation, I don't know if they've matched the meaning exactly, but if you listen carefully, they actually have it rhyming, which is an achievement. Not sure the actual reasons why, but songs written in Greenlandic very seldom rhyme. This is a well-known Greenlandic song called Nuuk, recorded by Ungaaq. So well known that I have actually done this song in Dubcast number 4. So I had the tracks for that in my Bluetooth speaker, so I had to give them some of it.
Sure.
song for you. I know the whole song.
Yeah.
Well, they did have some device to play music on there. So, besides singing, they played a little bit, and there were some. It's that polka stuff. This was the heavy colonial influence from Europe, way back in the day, that did take hold in Greenland. So they'll dance to this stuff for hours on end at parties and things. So, sounds like this. And on and on and on and on. And did you hear the tap dancing on the floor there? Since there are no words to sing along with, that's what they do. They dance. Well, I had a very enjoyable evening hanging out with them and singing Greenlandic songs. And the next morning, from my room at the hostel, my cabin, Ungaaq picked me up on time, took me to the airport, and this time without any major delays, I flew to Copenhagen. And the plan there was to go to the Greenland in Tivoli Day concert at the place in Copenhagen, and I'll tell you about that in Dubcast number 67.